If I can have your attention here in the Media Center, we will now go ahead and get started with today's Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series media availabilities. And we're going to start it off with none other than Kevin Harvick, driver of the number 4 Busch Light Ford for Stewart Haas Racing. I know we've got a lot of questions in the room. We're going to go ahead and start it here with Andrew. If you have a question, raise your hand. We'll get a wireless mic to you.
Andrew Curlin, NASCAR Acceleration Nation. Last weekend was a very statement win for you guys at Dover, 4th win of the year. Do you feel like that's a response to Kyle Busch putting up 3 in a row? And do you feel Kyle Busch is pushing you and your team to a higher standard?
It wasn't a response to anything. We go to the racetrack every week with the same approach of trying to lead laps and win the race. And, you know, I feel like, you know, we're good at pushing ourselves and trying to get better throughout the year. And you know, I feel like the experience of our team is what pushes us.
Go Randy, and then the Jeff, and then the Nick.
Randy Kovitz for USA Today. Kevin is a former team owner and a former champion. I know you've got some thoughts, I hope you do, on this possible sale in NASCAR. Just what are your thoughts on it as a driver and having been on the management side too?
Yeah, you know, I discussed all that on Tuesday night, and you know, I think today it's really about racing for me. You know, and trying to focus on what I need to do with my race team and make my cars go around the racetrack. If I knew the specifics of it, it would be, you know, and even whether it's true, would be easier to give you my opinion.
Go next to Jeff, and then to Todd.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Just to follow up on that, you said on your show that it could be an opportunity for the schedule to have some changes. Do you look at the possible sale as something more of an opportunity than something to be worried about?
I think, you know, when you look at sales of businesses, and NASCAR is a business, there's always going to be, at some point, there's always going to be talk about sales, and there's always going to be talk about transition of ownership, and you know, it's something that happens in every business. And you know, I think as you look at that, you know, I think that the opportunities that come about when you have those situations, you know, people aren't buying them. Don't buy companies to make them worse. And you know, I think that there's always opportunity if there were a sale for something to get better.
We'll go to Todd, then back to Breyer, and then to Lee.
Hey, Kevin. Todd Palmer with Kansas City Star. You've been in the sport for a long time. I was curious, you know, there's been a lot of talk about like Bubba Wallace coming in, the diversity with the drivers and stuff like that. Have you seen that with Cruz and some behind-the-scenes stuff? And is that important for the future of NASCAR, you think, to kind of diversify, you know, the sport and maybe, you know, by extension, diversify the audience?
You know, I think when you look at the NASCAR diversity program, you know, they've done a great job with that through the years. I think we've seen a lot of graduates, you know, come through that particular program. Obviously, on this particular side, you have Darrell Wallace and Daniel Suarez, who have been all the way through it. You know, I think just like the last question, I think in any business you want to have as much diversity as you can, because obviously, in our case, the audience, you know, becomes interested in different things. So, you know, I think as you look at it in general, I think everybody pushes towards that on a yearly basis, whether it's the teams or NASCAR in general.
We'll go next to Breyer, then to Lee, then to Chris, and then to Nick.
Breyer Star, SpeedwayMedia.com. You had 2 wins here at Kansas, and you're coming off a win at Dover. What would it mean to you to go back to victory lane here tomorrow night and have back-to-back consecutive wins in a row?
Well, you know, I feel like this has honestly been one of our best racetracks as I've gone through the years, and especially since I've come to SHR. I don't feel like we've won as many races here as we probably should have. You know, some of it of our own doing, you know, and some of it just circumstances. But we've always run really, really well here. And, you know, for me, I look forward to coming here for a number of different reasons. You know, not only do we run well at the racetrack, but, you know, I think just when you look at this racetrack, I saw it when it was just the racetrack and the highway here. And now you look at what's around it. Everything has been built around what you're sitting in right now. And to me, that is something that is pretty neat to see, just because of the fact of You know, the racetrack was here first, and you know, it's easy to get from the airport. It's one of the better racetracks on the schedule as far as convenience, in my opinion, because there is so much to do now. It's so conveniently off the highway and from the airport, and the airport's easy to get in and out of. There's just a number of things that I look forward to coming here, and sitting in the casino watching the truck race tonight, eating dinner is not too bad either. So it's just a good place to come. And like I say, we run well here, but it's just a good experience, and I just enjoy the surroundings of everything that is outside of the racetrack as well. So I enjoy that.
We'll go to Lee, then to Chris, Nick, Kathy, and Todd.
Were you surprised by Martha Earnhardt's comments that you were now her favorite race car driver?
It did catch me a little bit off guard, to tell you the truth. And you know, just hearing that, seeing that comment, not hearing it, seeing that comment, you know, from Dale Jr. and you know, seeing the reaction, you know, from a lot of the fans is a lot of responsibility, honestly. You know, and it's like I said on the show Tuesday night, it's you know, when you look at the Earnhardt family in general, I mean, the legacy that they have in our sport, you know, no matter where, you know, from start to finish, from Ralph to Dale Jr. on down to, you know, what happens next, you know, it's a major backbone of what has happened in this sport. And when you look at that, you know, I feel like I have a, you know, small part of you know, where that changed and took place and where it's going. So for me, you know, there's a lot of pressure, but also a lot of pride in that as well as trying to do right. You know, whether it's for the family or, you know, for those old senior fans, you want to do the right thing. Haven't always done the right thing, but you know, I feel like as you go through the years, you transition more into the right direction than what we did in the beginning. So that to me, you know, personally feels good.
And it doesn't seem to matter that you drive a Ford, and even though, you know, Dale Sr. drove Fords at, you know, very slightly in his career, but do you think that the manufacturer end of this matters as much to fans today as it did back in the day?
Well, I can tell you when we first switched from Chevy to Ford, it was a major topic of conversation with the fans. You know, I think now that the fans see that, you know, the cars are running fast, you know, and Ford is heavily committed. You know, there's as many Ford fans that have jumped on board that weren't Chevy fans, and a lot of the Chevy fans are, you know, have stayed on board, you know, to support the team, and it's really become not a topic of conversation now. But when we first switched, it was surprising to see how much the manufacturer still mattered to the fans, which is good. That's what you need. I mean, it'd be great to see the fans stand up and boo for the guy they don't like. You know, you hear them so much talk about, you know, wanting the drivers to, you know, to be more vocal and do this, but they should do the same thing. If you don't like the guy, stand up and boo for him. Stand up and cheer for your guy, and be supportive, and you know, that's those are the types of things that the drivers like to see.
Go next to Chris, then to Nick, Kathy, and Todd.
Chris Knight, catchfence.com. Kevin, I know it's a little early to start thinking about 2019, but as the Fords have been so strong this year, is a thought that the Mustangs could struggle as we've seen the Camaros do this year?
Well, I don't think you ever really know that answer until you put it on the racetrack. You know, I would put the, you know, the aero side of things in this garage, our aero department up against anybody. I don't think anybody does a better job. So, you know, I think as you look at that project, you know, you hope it goes better than, you know, what you're seeing from the Chevrolet side of things, but you just never know until you get on the racetrack. It's a tough project, but to have the Mustang back on the racetrack from a branding side of things is going to be pretty cool to be a part of. But I don't anticipate that happening. I think we will do a better job.
Nick Bromberg, Yahoo Sports. I know entering the season, data sharing was a big topic and the potential impact. So now that we're a third of the way through the season, have you noticed an impact or any changes, or was that a little bit overblown before the season?
I feel like we do a really good job of utilizing you know, all the information that is available to us, and we utilize it. You know, it's heavily utilized in our trailer. How it's utilized is, you know, in everybody else's trailer, I don't know. But I know that, you know, we use the tools that we have and try to maximize those tools to make sure somebody's looking at the stuff to pry all the details out of, you know, what you can do better, what you're doing good. You know, so there's a lot of information, and you'd be crazy not to look at it. We have more tools on a daily basis. Yeah, you know, and that's really, you know, as we've transitioned through the Ford side of things, I just feel like every week it feels like we have another tool that's being developed and utilized, and you know, with the manufacturer and the teams and our guys in our trailer from an engineering standpoint and SHR in general do a good job of not saying, oh man, what is this? This is dumb. Let's look at it. Let's use it. Let's see what the benefits are of it, and then figure out how we're going to put that tool in our toolbox as to when it's useful. You know, because being stuck in what you've always done is your worst nightmare. Because if you get stuck in what you've always done, you're in big trouble in this garage. And it's a constant evolution on a weekly basis as to what you utilize, how you utilize things, when you use them. And it's just you know, when you get this much engineering involved in things, you better be prepared to change what you do, because it changes rapidly. And the way you look at things may not be the same way you look at things next week, whether it's just a screen and how it's laid out, or how you're utilizing it and what you use it for. But it is just a constant evolution of what you have and what you're using. And sometimes I feel like people lose sight of that and don't really understand how engineering based our sport is, and engineering advanced. I'd put this garage up against anybody in racing across the world when you talk about the technology that lives in this garage.
Kathy?
Kathy Sheldon, NASCAR.com. Every time we come here, we talk about the wind. Could you explain a little bit how that affects the racing and whether it's a bigger factor for trucks or cup cars?
Yeah, well, it depends on what direction it's blowing, but you can get a pretty constant wind here, and usually, if I remember correctly, it's going to blow from turn 1 and 2 to, it can blow from turn 1 and 2 to 3 and 4, or 3 and 4 to 1 and 2. Usually, if I remember correctly, it blows straight across one straightaway or the other. Just, it doesn't usually have a crosswind. I'm sure it'll have a crosswind when I walk out there, but you know, for the most part, it seems like it's a headwind or a tailwind, and usually what that does is it either pushes you into the corner and makes the car usually looser, and if you go into the other end, it's going to make it turn better because there's more air pushing against the side of the car. And if it does wind up being a crosswind, it's going to make the car not want to turn up off the corner or into the corner. So it definitely affects it, and usually it'll blow one direction one day, and then the next day it'll blow the opposite direction, so that you always have something to chase. But that's just a lot of what you put into the notebook, so that you have some idea of what does what when the wind is blowing. But usually it is blowing.
Todd?
All right, Todd Palmer with Kansas Star again. Dale Jr. had won the most popular driver award 15 straight years. I wanted you to, what's your sales pitch? Why should you get the fans' vote this year as most popular driver?
Well, we're fortunate to have a great fan base, but we probably won't win. So I would say the next guy that's going to take that reign is going to be Chase Elliott. And the bottom line is, when you look at our sport, there's only a few guys that come through this sport that have the name, the history, the heritage of that NASCAR family, and carry that through their career. And Chase is one of those guys, and he's done a great job of carrying himself and being competitive and doing all the things that he does. But he is the NASCAR tie to the beginning of the sport, or however far back you want to look at it. But he has that family name and that history and the heritage of the hardcore NASCAR fan, who are going to be the people who vote that. And his dad won a few times in the most popular driver, and he's the next Dale Jr. He's the next guy that is he going to is he going to win enough to be the megastar at some point? You know, and he's a star right now, but, you know, winning takes you to that next level of being a bigger star. And Chase Elliott winning is better for our sport. And he's going to be the guy that wins the most popular driver, in my opinion, for the next several years. There's nobody else that has that tie to our sport that like Chase does. I can win 20 races a year, and I'm never going to have that tie to the sport like Chase does.
Well, Kevin, good luck in your pursuit of win number 5 on the season, and good luck the rest of the week.
Thank you, guys.